My name is Amelia Walker. I am 32 years old. Last spring, my parents sued me for buying my own house. I am not exaggerating. An actual civil lawsuit, filed in Hennepin County. A stack of papers thicker than my nursing textbooks. I get served right on my front porch, while still in scrubs, my badge from the night shift still hanging off my collar. The process server looks more apologetic than I do shocked. The lawsuit is about my house, not their house, not an inheritance, not even a co-signed loan. My house, purchased with my own income, closed on April 14th just before interest rates jumped again. But this did not come out of nowhere. Growing up in Minneapolis, I always knew my sister Tiffany was the chosen one, the golden child. 3 years younger, louder, prettier, dramatic, in a way that made adults lean in and listen. Meanwhile, I was the quiet one who followed rules, made checklists, and volunteered to feed the cat. Tiffany could fail and still be praised for her creativity. I could succeed and be told not to make a big deal. She dropped out of 2 colleges by 24 and started 6 jobs in 6 months. I graduated with honors and went straight into a trauma rotation. My parents never said she was better. They did not have to. When she turned 26, they gave her $3,000 to start a jewelry business. She made 4 necklaces, sold 1 to a neighbor, and called it a burnout. I asked to borrow $700 for a dental bridge. I had an infected molar, could barely eat. My dad said, "We raised you to be self-sufficient." I paid out of pocket and worked 2 extra shifts to cover rent. Every Thanksgiving, I brought the groceries. Every spring, I filed my mother's insurance forms. Every summer, I loaned Tiffany my car while hers was in the shop. I never saw gas money back. I was the dependable one, the default option, the helper who never needed help. Until I did. Last year, I found a house in Uptown. Nothing fancy. 3 beds, 1.5 baths. Old bones, but clean inspections. The asking price was $322,000. I negotiated down to $318,400. Interest rate was 3.9%. I paid 20% down using a combination of savings bonuses and a certificate of deposit I had started when I was 23. The closing date was a Friday. On Sunday, I invited the family for dinner. I made lasagna from scratch and served them at the dining table I'd assembled with my own hands. My dad stood in the kitchen afterward and said, "Family takes care of family." I thought he meant the meal, but he glanced at Tiffany when he said it. She was sitting at the counter sipping wine, not offering to help clean. Then he asked whether I was planning to let her live in the guest room while she got on her feet. I laughed. I said, "She's 29. Shouldn't she already be on her feet?" My mother did not laugh. They said I had plenty of space, that it was unfair to hoard success, that Tiffany was trying her best and needed security. I said no, kindly but clearly. 3 weeks later, I was sued. The lawsuit claimed I had promised to provide housing, that Tiffany had turned down other options because she was relying on my offer, that there was a verbal agreement made during Thanksgiving dinner. No such agreement existed, but the claim was enough to trigger mediation. And for the first time in my adult life, I saw my family not as people, but as a coordinated unit designed to extract. What they did not know was that I had been preparing for this in my own quiet way. I had been logging every transfer made over the last 10 years. Every favor, every repayment. I had kept screenshots, emails, a spreadsheet labeled Assistance Tracker. They thought I would cave, that I always would. But I had spent the past decade being underestimated. While they watched Tiffany's drama, I had been building a life, and now that I had something to protect, I would protect it with everything I had. This is not revenge. This is not bitterness. This is about boundaries. About refusing to be penalized for growing up. The first time I met with my lawyer, she asked what outcome I wanted. I said I want the truth to be documented. I want the court to know the truth. She nodded. Then she said something that still echoes. The truth is nothing without receipts. So I brought receipts. And what followed was a year that showed me who I am without them. What they never expected was that their own daughter, the quiet one, the helper, would learn to wield power without ever raising her voice. Subscribe before you hear how a courtroom, a Google Drive folder, and a single projected screenshot cracked my family in half. The favoritism is not a sudden thing. It builds over years like plaque thin and invisible until it hardens into something you cannot ignore. I am 6 when I first notice it. Tiffany throws a tantrum over a birthday cake. I offer her my slice. My mom calls me mature for my age. Tiffany gets the frosting corner and a second gift. At 10, I start doing my own laundry. At 16, I am folding Tiffany's too. I do not mind. At least not yet. I like being useful. I do what is asked. I pick her up from track practice. I make flashcards for her Spanish quiz. I drive her to her friends' houses when I get my license. She calls me dependable. My parents say I make life easier. By college, it is a pattern. Tiffany drops out of a liberal arts program in Arizona. She is 21. My parents pay for her flight home and offer her the basement while she figures things out. She stays for 3 years. I graduate in 4 and get hired at Mercy General within 6 weeks. I start in the med-surg unit and work weekends while studying for trauma certification. When I bring home my first bonus $2,400, I use it to pay off my student laptop. When Tiffany gets hers from a short-lived sales job, she buys concert tickets and overdrafts her checking account. My dad transfers $500 to cover it. Later, he shrugs and says it's just money. I learn quickly that neediness is rewarded. Efficiency is invisible. They say she is sensitive, that I am strong. But strength without recognition starts to feel like punishment. I remember every detail of the dental loan. It was February. I had an exposed root and was down to yogurt and applesauce. I asked my parents for $700. My dad said you should have planned better. I had. I just had an unexpected tire replacement the week before. I told him I would pay them back by the end of the month. He said they would think about it. A week later, they sent Tiffany $3,000 to help her start her own jewelry line. She posted a picture of wire-wrapped stones on Instagram with the caption, "Birthstone Goddess Energy." She made 4 pieces. 2 broke. 1 was given away. The last sat unsold in her car for weeks. They told her they were proud of her hustle. I paid for my own procedure on a credit card and worked 5 overnight shifts in a row to cover the balance. I do not bring this up. Not then. I tell myself they do not mean harm. I tell myself they are just trying to support her until she finds her place. But the support never ends. Tiffany is 29 and still does not have a resume. She does gig work, dabbles in pottery volunteers at an art co-op. She never commits to anything long enough to fail. When her car breaks down, she uses mine. When she runs out of gas money, she says she is manifesting abundance. I pay utilities on time. I file their taxes. I explain deductibles when my mother forgets how copays work. I bring hand sanitizer and Clorox wipes to every family gathering. I organize the calendar. I make room. They say Amelia is always so good at handling things. They say Tiffany is finding herself. When I find the house, I almost do not tell them. But a part of me still wants them to be proud. It is a 3-bedroom Craftsman just off Lyndale Avenue. Built in 1948. Original hardwood, refinished kitchen. Listed at $322,000. I offer $315,000. The seller meets me halfway. Closing is scheduled for April 14th. I put down $63,000 from my own savings. No cosigner, no gifts, just a decade of double shifts and smart spreadsheets. The day I get the keys, I sit in the living room with no furniture and breathe. The light comes in just right through the east-facing windows. I have my own walls, my own roof. I feel like I did something real. I invite the family over that Sunday. I make dinner. I want it to feel warm, honest, like a soft reset. Tiffany shows up late. My mother complains about parking. My father comments that the neighborhood is transitional. I smile. I serve lasagna and salad. I give a little tour. I do not expect applause, but I expect at least acknowledgement. Instead, my father lingers in the hallway and says, "So, what's the plan for the guest room?" I say, "Office or maybe yoga space." He raises his eyebrows. Tiffany walks in, holding a glass of red wine, and says, "So, I guess I should cancel the apartment showing." I ask what she means. My mother says, "You have plenty of space. You could help your sister out." I do not say no right away. I try to laugh it off. I say I was hoping to live alone for a while. My father says family takes care of family. My mother says, "Don't be selfish." Tiffany says nothing. I clean up alone. They leave early. My mother forgets her scarf. I wash it and mail it back. For 3 weeks, I hear nothing. Then I get a certified letter. It is a civil complaint. Thomas and Diane Walker versus Amelia Walker. The claim states that I made an oral agreement to house my sister, that she relied on this promise, that she has suffered emotional and financial damages. The phrase unjust enrichment appears 3 times. I reread it twice. I do not cry. I do not scream. I put on coffee, and I start a folder. I call Natalie, my friend from undergrad, who now works for a legal nonprofit. She puts me in touch with a private attorney. Lisa Bryce, $400 an hour, worth every penny. At our first meeting, Lisa asks if I have documentation. I slide over a flash drive and a printed binder. Her eyebrows rise. She says most people do not prepare this well. I tell her I have been preparing for 10 years without knowing it. We review text messages, Venmo screenshots, emails, Thanksgiving group chats, financial transfers. I label everything. I index the years. I create timelines. I am calm, focused. I treat this like a charting session. Symptoms, history, intervention, mediation is scheduled for July 12th. In the meantime, I stop answering calls. I do not go to brunch. I pull back. No one notices. They assume I am busy. I'm always busy. Tiffany posts vague quotes about setting boundaries on Instagram. One says sometimes the villain is just the one who stops enabling. She gets 30 likes. I say nothing, but I begin to realize this has never been about helping. It has always been about what they could take without resistance. The lawsuit forces me to look at my own history with clinical clarity. It is not just favoritism, it is a system, one that depends on me never calling it out. But now there is paper, dates, deposits, texts. Now there is structure. And soon there will be legal consequences. This is where the real story begins. When I leave the mediation office, I walk straight to the parking garage and sit in my car for 11 minutes before turning the key. I watch a father tie his daughter's shoelace on the sidewalk. I watch 2 birds fight over a French fry. I watch nothing at all. That morning, I offered a full first and last month's rent to Tiffany, plus a check for $2,000 as a one-time relocation gift. I printed everything. I used calm language. I tried to be generous without surrendering. I gave her options. She responded by calling it insulting. She looked at my parents and said I should not have to beg for what I was promised. My mother wiped tears that were not there. My father said this is what we get for raising one child to be selfish. They never addressed me directly. Tiffany stood up and walked out of the room. The mediator said, "This is a high-conflict family system." I said, "It is not a system. It is an extraction model." Then I thanked her for her time. After that day, I make 3 decisions. I do not tell anyone. I do not ask for input. I just act. First, I stop trying to explain myself. No more long texts. No more careful language to avoid setting them off. I mute the family group chat. I do not block them. I let them send their words into silence. Second, I go private on everything. Social media, email, even Amazon wish lists. I delete my Venmo history. I change the security questions on my bank account. I check my credit report monthly. I update the locks on my doors, not out of fear, out of clarity. Third, I start building for real. Quietly, strategically, without emotion. I ask for more night shifts. I pick up every open ICU weekend. I average 70 hours a week for the next 4 months. My gross pay increases by more than 35%. Overtime differentials add up fast. I open a high-yield savings account and redirect 40% of every paycheck. By November, I have saved nearly $20,000. My student loans are down to 5 figures for the first time since graduation. I also open a separate account. I call it my insulation fund. Not for emergencies, not for retirement, just for insulation. Psychological, financial, emotional. The ability to say no without fear. I set the goal at 50,000. I reach 32 by February. In my free time, which shrinks to almost nothing, I begin coursework for my nurse educator credential. It is asynchronous, flexible. I can study in the break room during slow hours. I complete the first module by Halloween, the second by Thanksgiving. By April, I qualify for certification. All of this happens in silence. No announcements, no updates, no posts. When coworkers ask why I am working so much, I say just tying up loose ends. Meanwhile, the lawsuit drags. Their side asks for an extension, then another. Lisa says it is typical. She tells me they are stalling, hoping I will settle. I ask if it is working. She smiles and says, "You are one of the calmest clients I have ever had." I do not feel calm. I feel focused. I track every hour, every dollar, every document. I build a timeline of all financial transactions between myself and my family from 2012 to 2024. I include exact dates, transfer amounts, and the purpose of each. I label every dollar sent for rent car repairs, groceries, travel, or personal requests. I include proof of repayment or lack thereof. The total unreimbursed value is just over $16,000. I organize every message that suggests obligation. Every phrase like "you owe her" or "she deserves stability" or "family" means sacrifice. I categorize them. I highlight recurring language. I create a section for emotional leverage. I make tabs for each year. When Lisa sees the file, she says, "You have done most of my work for me." I say I just wanted someone to see it clearly. The hardest part is not the work. It is the quiet, the space between interactions, the way holidays come and go without obligation, the way no one checks in unless I check first. I learned that being needed is not the same as being loved. Thanksgiving passes without an invite. Christmas, too. I send no cards. I receive one. It is unsigned but postmarked from my parents' zip code. Inside is a generic message and a photo of Tiffany's cat in a Santa hat. No return address. I spend the holidays reading case law. I keep the Christmas lights off. I tell myself this is temporary. January brings snow and court prep. Discovery begins. Lisa files a motion to compel specific financial disclosures. Tiffany's bank records show large withdrawals that do not match her stated income. Lisa highlights them in blue. She points to a $30,000 transfer from my parents' home equity line of credit to Tiffany's checking account. The date is 2 weeks before they filed the lawsuit. We subpoena text messages. Lisa includes a printout of a conversation where my father writes, "We just need to remind her of her responsibilities." My mother replies, "We did not raise her to turn her back on blood." Tiffany says, "Do not worry. Amelia always caves." When I read that message, I do not get angry. I get precise. Lisa drafts our response. She adds exhibits. We reference every false claim, every contradiction, every manipulation. The documents grow to 400 pages. We label each section with neutral terms: timeline, transfers, statements, family history. The hearing is scheduled for March 3rd, 2 weeks before Tiffany posts a video on social media. It is a black and white clip of her lighting a candle. She talks about forgiveness, about trauma, about people who abandon you when you need them most. She says she believes in peace. I watch it twice. Then I close the tab. None of this surprises me. What surprises me is how peaceful I feel. Not happy, not vindicated, just steady. I do not respond, I do not react. I prepare. I print my documents. I organize my notes. I buy a new blazer. I practice breathing. I take 1 day off to rest. I sleep. I hydrate. I stretch. I listen to nothing. I speak only when required. The day before the hearing, Lisa and I meet to review strategy. She tells me, "We will lead with facts, not emotion. Let the evidence speak. You have done the work." I nod. Then I say, "I just want this to be over." She replies, "It will be, but not because they surrender, because you stood firm." I walk home after that meeting. It is below freezing. My hands are raw. My breath comes out like fog. Still, I feel warm. I do not know exactly what the judge will say. But I know this. I have not lied. I have not exaggerated. I have not collapsed. I have built something, and tomorrow they will see it. The courtroom is smaller than I expect. The carpet smells like old paper. The judge is calm and unreadable. She asks both sides to begin. Lisa leads with documentation. She speaks slowly, deliberate. She uses dates, bank records, messages. She describes the claim as speculative. She points out the absence of any written agreement. She notes the $30,000 transfer from my parents to Tiffany 2 weeks before filing. The judge nods but says nothing. Their lawyer stammers through a defense about verbal commitments. My mother whispers to him 3 times. My father watches the judge instead. Tiffany shifts in her chair. She looks smaller than usual. She keeps glancing at me, waiting for a reaction. I give her none. When the judge asks if I have anything to add, I stand and say, every dollar I used to buy my home came from my work. I never promised housing. I never even offered it. I said no. They chose not to hear it. Nay. Then I sit down. The judge requests a brief recess. When she returns, she dismisses the case with prejudice. She orders both parties to cover their own legal fees. No further comment. It is over in less than an hour. Outside, I thank Lisa. She tells me I handled it perfectly. I say nothing. We shake hands. She walks to her car. I stay where I am. I do not feel victorious. I feel exposed. Not because I lost anything, but because now they know I am not a source they can tap, and I know they will not forget it. In the weeks after the hearing, the silence is louder than before. There are no calls, no messages, no visits, no apologies. Instead, there is space. I use it. I complete my nurse educator certification. I apply for an internal promotion at Mercy General. 3 weeks later, I am hired as a nursing education coordinator. My salary increases by $14,000. I move from night shifts to structured daytime hours. I now lead training sessions and design continuing education programs for new hires. I write policy updates. I present at safety briefings. The change is more than income. It is rhythm. For the first time in years, I have evenings. I cook real meals. I read novels again. I walk after work without feeling like I am chasing time. Financially, I move with precision. I contribute the IRS maximum to my Roth IRA. I open a taxable brokerage account. I begin automatic transfers every pay period. 40% to long-term savings, 15% to the insulation fund. I carry no credit card balance. I refinance my home when rates drop to 2.8%. My monthly mortgage falls by $312. I invest the difference. By October, my net worth crosses $100,000. I track it monthly. I do not celebrate. I just note the number. I update the spreadsheet. I make space for more than work. I reconnect with my friend Natalie. We start a Saturday routine. Farmer's market. Tea. No drama. I adopt a dog from the shelter. His name is Chance. He follows me room to room, like he has always belonged here. At night, I listen to him breathe while I fall asleep. Professionally, things accelerate. In December, I speak at a regional nursing conference. My topic is resilience without martyrdom. The feedback is strong. I receive 3 emails asking if I offer coaching. I do not, but I save their names. In February, I am invited to join the hospital's Internal Leadership Council. The meetings are monthly. I sit next to the chief nursing officer. I speak once every session. I use data. I keep it brief. I earn trust. While my life gains shape and forward movement, theirs begins to tilt. Through Natalie, who still sees my cousin occasionally, I hear that Tiffany is struggling again. She quit a part-time admin job after 2 months. She says the office energy felt wrong. She is behind on rent. She is thinking of launching a podcast. My parents have offered to co-sign on a loan. She wants to open a wellness center. I do not react. Natalie also tells me that my mother made a comment at a family gathering. She said she is glad Amelia finally realized family matters more than pride. No one corrected her. In March, my parents send me an invitation for Sunday lunch. I do not respond. A week later, a card arrives in the mail. No return address. Inside is a message. We all make mistakes. Blood is thicker. Come home. I read it once. Then I file it under personal correspondence. I do not answer. Instead, I spend the next Sunday with my neighbors. The couple next door has a daughter applying to nursing school. I help her with her essay. She wants to work in pediatrics. She asks me if nursing is worth it. I say yes, but only if you learn early what to give and what to protect. That spring, I start teaching part-time at the local community college. 1 class. Introduction to Clinical Practice. I meet students who work overnight at diners and care homes. I remember being them. I remember scraping together rent textbooks shoes with the right soles. I create a grant with my own money. $5,000. No application. Just need and effort. I call it the Walker Resilience Fund. No one knows who it is named after. I like it that way. The distance becomes routine. No one pressures me now. No one expects. I suspect they are still waiting for me to soften, to circle back. They mistake silence for invitation. But I know better. Growth is not a loud process. It is steady, quiet, like muscle under scar tissue, stronger in the places that broke. I do not seek reconciliation, but I no longer carry resentment. I have nothing to prove. The things that once pulled me under now hold no weight. And for the first time in my life, I stop managing everyone else's disappointment and start designing my own peace. The reckoning comes quietly. No courtroom this time, no attorneys, just a church basement, a folding table, and the kind of silence that fills a room before something breaks. It starts with a funeral. My father's sister passes away in June. Lung cancer, fast and unforgiving. The family holds a memorial on the 23rd, a Saturday. I get the email invitation through my cousin, not my parents. I RSVP, yes. No +1, no comments. I show up early. I sit in the back. I bring flowers and place them without announcement. I keep my coat on, even though the air is heavy. No one notices me until the service starts. Then heads turn. My mother freezes. My father swallows hard. Tiffany stares. I do not flinch. After the service, I speak to my aunt's children. I keep it brief. Then I turn to leave. That is when it happens. A man walks up to me. Middle-aged, glasses. He introduces himself as Robert. He works for the County Housing Commission. He tells me he heard I am the coordinator who helped expand the nurse educator training program at Mercy General. He says he read my name in a local healthcare newsletter. He asks if I would be willing to consult on a training module for emergency housing staff. He says they have been trying to improve their trauma-informed response system and need a clinical perspective. My mother hears this. She is 3 feet away. She does not speak, but she hears every word. I say I would be happy to meet. We exchange cards. He leaves. She walks up slowly. She says we had no idea you were doing all this. I say I know. Then I turn and walk out. That night, I get an email. It is from my father. The subject line says starting over. The message reads, maybe we got some things wrong. Maybe you did too. But we still love you. Let us talk. We are still family. I do not reply. 2 weeks later, I am invited to speak at the Mercy General Donor Luncheon. It is a modest event. 70 people, round tables, name tags, a few journalists. I am asked to give a 5-minute talk on workforce development. I write it carefully. I practice 3 times. I stand behind the podium and deliver it without shaking. I do not mention my family. I talk about equity, about burnout, about the silent weight many nurses carry. I end with a simple line. Respect starts when we stop expecting people to sacrifice without asking if they consented. Afterward, a reporter from a regional health magazine asks to interview me. I agree. The article runs in August. It includes my title credentials and a quote about resilience. Nothing sensational, nothing personal. Still, someone sends it to my parents, probably a cousin, maybe Tiffany. I do not ask. 2 weeks later, I get another message, this time from Tiffany. She writes, I was angry. I thought you were being selfish. I did not see what you were actually doing. I'm sorry. Can we meet? I stare at the message for a full minute, then I archive it. That month, I attend a regional healthcare summit. I sit on a panel about ethical leadership. During the Q&A, someone asks how I maintain boundaries in high-demand environments. I say boundaries are not walls. They are doors with locks. You choose who gets a key. I watch a few heads nod in the audience. The room is quiet, respectful. No one claps too loudly. No one argues. It is not dramatic, but I feel it. That shift. The one where people stop looking at you as a helper and start recognizing you as a force. Later that evening, I stop by the community college where I teach. It is orientation week. I bring donuts. The department chair thanks me. She says students have been asking for me by name. I leave early and walk home. The city is warm. The light stays late this time of year. My phone buzzes. It is a photo from Natalie. A screenshot of a Facebook post Tiffany made. She has tagged my mother and father. The caption reads, "Families make mistakes, but forgiveness is what makes us whole again." The post includes a photo of my house. It is an old photo, taken the day I closed. Before the curtains, before the new front steps. But it is mine. I call Lisa. I ask what my options are. She says the photo is public property, but the caption could be misleading. She recommends I send a formal cease and desist if it escalates. I write a message. I do not send it. Instead, I post a short update on my professional account. It says, "Clarity is not cruelty. Silence is not weakness. Ownership means knowing what you built and who tried to take it from you." It gets shared 37 times. A week later, my hospital administrator forwards me an email. A patient wrote to thank me for a workshop I gave on burnout prevention. She said it helped her decide to stay in nursing. I print it and pin it to the inside of my cabinet. This is the only acknowledgement I need. Tiffany sends one more message. Just 3 words. "Please talk soon." I do not answer. By October, things settle. I hear from a coworker that my parents are downsizing. They are listing the house, no mention of why. I suspect they can no longer afford it. Or maybe the memories feel different now. I feel nothing. The reckoning is not loud. It does not always come with shouting or slamming doors. Sometimes it is a quiet table in a church basement where someone else says your name with respect. Sometimes it is a public article that tells the truth without naming the wound. Sometimes it is your silence in the face of someone else's spin. They wanted to control my story, but now the record stands on its own, and they cannot touch it. It is November now. The air feels clean. The trees outside my house are almost bare, just a few golden leaves holding on. I stand at my window each morning with a cup of coffee, not to watch anything in particular, but to remember that I am here. That this space, this quiet, belongs to me. The lawsuit is nearly a year behind me. The public tension has faded. No new messages arrive. No more vague social media posts. No surprise letters. The silence that once felt like exile now feels like peace. My parents have sold their house, a smaller place across town. I hear about it from a former neighbor who runs into me at the market. She says the old place feels different without them. I nod. I do not ask for details. Tiffany moves again. I do not know where. I hear she is doing part-time admin work again. I hear she is trying. I hope that is true. I do not check. The last time I see any of them in person is at a hospital event in January. My mother is there with a friend of hers, a retired teacher, who volunteers at the same nonprofit. We make eye contact. She gives me a small nod. I nod back. No words, no apology, no tension either. Just 2 people who understand there is nothing else to be said. In March, I reach a new milestone. My insulation fund crosses $50,000. My investments continue to grow. My credit score is in the high 700s. I teach 2 classes each semester. I lead 3 trainings per month at the hospital. I speak at a leadership summit in Chicago. I meet professionals who do not know my past. They only know what I bring to the room. One day in April, I opened an envelope from a nursing student I mentored the year before. She writes that she is graduating early. She says my advice helped her navigate a tough semester without giving up. She includes a photo in her cap and gown. I frame it. I keep it on my desk. This is the family I choose, the one built on respect, not obligation. Chance still follows me from room to room. He is older now, slower. He waits by the door each morning when I leave and greets me the same way when I return. Some days I think he understands more about healing than most people ever will. In May, I take 2 weeks off. I visit the North Shore, stay in a quiet cabin, bring books I have been meaning to read for years. I hike. I eat alone in peace. I listen to water and wind instead of voices demanding attention. I come home to a garden in bloom. Tomatoes, basil, marigolds. Everything planted last season has taken root. It grows on its own now. That feels like the right metaphor. My porch swing faces a maple tree that drew me to this house the day I found it. I sit there some evenings watching the light shift through the branches. I think about all the versions of myself that lived in other people's expectations. And I think about who I have become without them. Some lessons take years to surface. One of mine is this: family is not defined by who raised you. It is defined by who respects you when you say no. Another is this: boundaries are not about cutting people off. They are about choosing yourself without apology. There is no final confrontation, no dramatic apology, just space, distance, clarity. They do not get access to my life. Not because I am angry, but because I am no longer afraid to live it without their approval. For a long time, I believed that being reliable meant being available, that love was proved through sacrifice, that boundaries were selfish. Now I know better. Love without respect is manipulation. Help without limits becomes control. Silence in the face of injustice is not peace, it is surrender. I surrendered for years. I kept the peace. I gave and gave. I made it easier for everyone else, until I realized no one was doing the same for me. Now I give with intention. I say yes only when I mean it. I say no without guilt. I teach students to recognize the signs of burnout before it defines them. I show them how to advocate for themselves in systems that expect them to carry too much. I remind them they are allowed to protect their energy, their time, their dignity. Sometimes after class, one of them lingers and asks me how I learned this. I always say the same thing: I learned the hard way. But I learned. I tell them you do not have to earn your right to rest, or your right to peace, or your right to say, this is enough. I do not miss the old family dynamics. I do not grieve what never truly existed. I accept what was. I honor what I survived. I let go of what no longer serves me. This is not bitterness, it is clarity. This is not revenge, it is recovery. And this is not a sad ending. It is the beginning of everything I was meant to become once I stopped living to hold other people up and started standing on my own. If you have ever had to walk away from people who raised you but never saw you, know this: you are not alone, and your boundaries do not make you ungrateful. They make you whole. If you have ever been the one who carried everyone else's burdens while your own went unnoticed, I see you, and I promise it is not selfish to stop. If you have a similar story, share it. Tell it without shame. The more we speak, the more we remind each other that silence is not the only option. We do not owe our peace to people who thrive on our exhaustion. What we owe is to ourselves, and we have already paid enough. Story 2. I received the message uninviting me shortly after they sent the invitation on a Tuesday. The envelope had the thickness, cream color, and gold filigree that you would expect from an Ivy League wedding or a senator's fundraiser. The front said, Bristow Family Reunion, Fairmont Hotel, San Francisco, August 15th, 7 p.m. I didn't open it. Not necessary. The name of the hotel was too familiar. It was listed under the Elite Partners Platinum tier on my tablet's client list. That was my electronic signature verifying the reservation on the contract. My cousin Olivia, who is always the unofficial family coordinator, buzzed a message on my phone a few moments later. The one with the courteously wrapped bad news. Hello, Lila. Just so you know, this year's Fairmont is completely booked. It will be a formal event with many guests arriving by plane. I hope it works for you. The emoji, the unspoken symbol of exclusion. Not a complete rejection. A courteous erasure only. I had previously seen this. Birthday invitations never came. During career announcements, my name was silently removed from group chats. I was never called a failure. They simply acted as though I didn't exist. I went back to my desk. The San Francisco skyline glowed in a misty haze as the rain pattered softly against the window of my 27th floor corner office. My screen still displayed the Bristol event contract. Olivia made the reservation via my concierge platform at the Fairmont Hotel. It had been flagged for approval by our assistant. For last-minute high-profile reservations, I personally approved a 30% premium. They were unaware that the same girl who used to work late into the night cleaning hotel rooms was now the CEO of Morgan Properties, which owns 15 historic buildings across Northern California. Unpredictable lost cause was what they continued to whisper. Let them speak. I never desired their acceptance. The night was mine. I walked over to the bookshelf and took out a tiny black frame that was hidden behind my business books. There was a battered plastic badge inside. Lila Housekeeping, San Francisco Grand Pacific Hotel, 2013. That night, I placed it prominently on my desk to remind myself why I had said yes to myself when everyone else had said no. even though I hadn't seen it in years. There are two kinds of people in this world, according to my mother: those who inherit names and those who carry legacies. After supper, when the wine had relaxed her speech, she would whisper it. We were supposed to. Not as though everything he said was legally binding. When I first realized what my role was, I was 11 years old. The burden, not the name. They intended for me to join Morgan Capital as a junior associate by the time I turned 24. My name was already on the door of an office. Morgan Lila. Business plan. Less than a year passed. I asked the wrong questions, not because I didn't succeed. Inquiries concerning layoffs. No one provided an explanation regarding the outsourcing of janitorial staff or the long-term employees' disappearance of their retirement fund. Your thinking is too limited. From behind his desk of polished oak, my father let out a bark. You're blind? No, I replied. All I'm interested in is what people carry. Our last meaningful conversation ended there. Our relationship shifted to a quiet distance after that. Birthdays are disregarded, and texts are not read. I enrolled in and graduated first in my class from San Francisco State University's Hospitality Management program. Not one member of the family appeared. I was cleaning rooms at a dilapidated motel close to Market Street a year later. Each shift has 10 rooms, wet linen and towels that smelled like bleach. However, it was truthful. I started from scratch when building it. No freebies. Olivia sent me the wedding picture from her reception at that point. Everyone was glowing, smiling faces, sparkling champagne, and tailored suits. Even though I wasn't in the photo, I can still clearly recall that evening. A dishwasher was on break, and the DJ had left early, so I sat at a table close to the kitchen. Olivia explained that it was because I appeared more at ease there. A screenshot of a family group chat showed up in my inbox 2 days later. A picture with a caption of my old housekeeping badge. Cleaning rooms was her goal. She must have gotten what she wanted. They chuckled. Nobody raised their voice, not even Aunt Marlene. You don't have to be like the others, said the aunt, who once gave me lemon drops in a whisper. I discovered that day. Not all erasure is loud or furious. Sometimes there is silence. You sit far from the head of the table, get cropped out of enough pictures, leave off enough messages, and eventually start to question whether you were ever there at all. So I let it go. I started creating something that no one could ignore instead of waiting for them to notice me. With only 3 months' worth of savings, an old laptop, and one duffel bag, I left San Francisco. There was only a desperate need for silence, no grand scheme. Somewhere, no one gave a damn about my family, and my last name was irrelevant. In Woodstock, Vermont, I rented a tiny attic room in a dilapidated farmhouse. May and Frank, an elderly couple who operated it, paid me in cash to take reservations, change linens, and deal with latecomers. I was given room 9, which had a single bed, a skylight that framed the stars, and a low slanted ceiling. I adored it. That was the beginning of true solitude. The concept, not the company. I scrawled questions in a battered spiral notebook. What caused some visitors to return while others disappeared? Why would a stranger feel noticed in a place they had never been to before, safe I watched? I tried things out. A confused sign, a crooked bench, and a buzzing lamp. I made all the repairs without a budget. Just be mindful. Soon, guests started asking for Lila, not Miss Morgan, Miss Lila. When May and Frank decided to retire, I showed up with spreadsheets, market research, and a vision. I made an offer they accepted. I renamed it Maple House, my first property, my first real win. 5 rooms, no employees, just me. I poured my heart into it, scrubbing every floorboard, replacing musty curtains with linen panels, painting walls in soft shades of sage and cream on every nightstand. I left a handwritten card. You're here now, you can rest. Guests remembered that line. I didn't hire a PR firm. I didn't need one. What did word of mouth do? No advertising effort could. Guests shared stories with their friends and raised awareness. Support came from attention. Not millions. Enough, but not overnight. I opened a second property, Maple Ridge, in less than 5 years. Then came a third, Maple Harbor, which was subtly superior to the larger resorts, despite being smaller. I gave them titles, respect, and fair pay when I promoted former housekeepers to site managers. No rigid uniforms, just dignified, real work. Subscribe right away if you think that starting over and quiet strength are powerful. You won't want to miss what comes next because Maple House's journey is just getting started. No hollow greetings, no phony smiles. Only those who proudly understood the true meaning of service. Never give in. By the time I turned 31, Maple House had subtly developed into a reputable brand of its own. Subtle luxury, careful consideration. No velvet ropes, no fountains made of marble. Only true dignity. Done correctly. I never signed my name on any of it, though. Under MP, the properties were listed. Morgan Holdings. Most people thought the CEO was a man who was ideal for me. I wasn't hiding, I was defending my creation. I was able to make something they couldn't destroy because of the silence. I kept my old plastic badge behind my desk, tucked away between vendor catalogs and fabric samples. The center of Lila's housekeeping was faded, cracked, and scratched. It should have been replaced long ago, but I wore it for a long time. Presented it simply. No glass black frame. Not affixed to any wall. Just for me, not for show. I held it some nights after countless spreadsheets and signatures. To remember the foundation, not to relive the suffering. I didn't construct Maple House to make a statement. I made it to fit in. One of Vermont's most upscale boutique hotels, Maple Harbor, was their choice for the family reunion. They didn't know. The corporate portal was used to make the reservation for Maple Harbor. In the family conversation, Olivia boasted about using her connections to get the desired location. "We're very fortunate," she said. The manager at the front desk informed her that although the owner was very private, everything was expedited as soon as they saw the family name. They were correct. I personally approved the linen color scheme, doubled the staff, upgraded their service-imported fresh flowers, and expedited it myself, naturally, digitally. Remember to subscribe if you experienced that silent moment of victory with me. When they eventually discover whose foundation they have been standing on, the next chapter begins. I hadn't signed a document in years, of course. When you leave, silence is the best defense. Not a single fingerprint. S. Bristow was listed as the host on the reservation, which was made using Morgan Hospitality's elite tier. The irony could have broken glass. Hannah, our guest relations manager, was reassigned to manage the account. Sophie was just another overly involved client who was fixated on spreadsheets and flower arrangements. She was intelligent, steady, and blissfully ignorant of family drama to Hannah. Sophie requested a custom floral arrangement with blue and white delphiniums and hydrangeas a week prior to the reunion. Hannah was summoned to my office. I told Hannah to be kind to them, but not gentle. Curious, she cocked her head. "What are you saying?" "Don't treat them like delicate glass. Simply serve them as they would like to be served." Slowly, a knowing smile crept onto Hannah's face as she nodded. I didn't have to explain everything to her. I sent just one message that evening. "You're coming, Janine and 2. Get there at 6:40. Avoid letting them in too soon." I saw the read receipt, but she didn't respond. That was sufficient. For the following 6 days, sleep was an uncommon visitor. I went over every aspect, including the menu options, signage, lighting cues, and room layout. I made one small adjustment at the last minute. Typically, a printed welcome note from the host family was placed in each guest suite. The card read this time, "We hope your visit serves as a reminder of your origins and what you never really lost." I didn't fully sign up, Layla. I didn't have to. On the day of the reunion, I didn't go through the front doors of the Grand. Rather, as I always did, I slipped in through the service entrance, passing carts full of fresh linens and trays of champagne glasses. Entering through the back door to enter the center of the house has a sacred quality. It helps you stay grounded. My outfit was navy, not wearing any jewelry. A hairpin. Quite nicely. Nothing. Called out for attention. For me, the room did that. They arrived in pairs at 6:45 p.m., followed by small groups. All the nervous sparkle of people who are desperate to be noticed, from loud laughter to firm handshakes. Sophie, too. Unaware that she was entering my home, she entered like a cruise director, grinning and waving. 10 minutes later, my father showed up with 2 strangers on either side. I instantly recognized sleepwatches, polished shoes, and finance types, the kind of men who use spreadsheets to build empires, but don't remember the janitors' names. From a tiny monitor hidden just past the kitchen hallway, I observed. Present but hidden. I was not missed. The beauty of it was that no one searched for me anymore because I had been removed from their story so long ago. However, that was going to change. The ballroom lights dimmed just enough to silence the conversation and pique interest at precisely 7:15. Then the noise. 3 gentle chimes, slow and methodical. Sophie was in the middle of describing the personalized glassware. With a clipboard in hand and his customary cool professionalism, our guest services manager Everett came over to her. The owner has asked that we start the welcome presentation right away. Miss Bristow, he said softly. The owner was perplexed by Sophie's blinks. Well, I don't believe that's required. I have been working with your office for weeks, and we have already expressed our gratitude to the staff. Usually, the owner doesn't do these things. Everett remained silent. All he did was turn to the stage. The screen came to life. White and crisp with a soft navy background and a clean serif font it's hard to miss. Layla Morgan, the CEO and CEO of P. Morgan Holdings, founded Maple Harbor. The space grew cold. Sophie's float broke on the marble floor after slipping out of her hands. The back did not speak, but my father's jaw tensed. There was a murmur. Hold on what? Above the ballroom as stepped onto the landing. Baby dress poised and composed hairpin back heels clicking softly. I was just like the woman they said I would never be. Good night, I said in a calm, steady voice. I'm aware that many of you were surprised to see me here tonight. Hold on. When the table attempted to laugh, there was a nervous chuckle. After all, you didn't invite me. Letting the words hang, I said. However, I felt it was time for you to be properly welcomed to Maple Harbor. After all, I let my gaze roam the crowd. You're in my house right now. Mouths parted, chairs shuffled. Rose whispers. Sophie moved forward apprehensively. The cheeks turned red. Crazy! What are you doing, Lila? She muttered. I looked into her cool, unblinking eyes. Just like you taught me. Entering. This hotel was reserved in your name, I said in a quiet but distinct voice. You stated that the Bristow name was the reason the owner showed you courtesy, correct? That was accurate. I provided you with precisely what you requested, plus 20%. I spoke without flinching. That was the triumph. You talked about me for years as if I were some far-off embarrassment. A dropout, a housekeeper, the girl who squandered her name. You said I vanished. I didn't go away, though. They simply stopped observing. I looked around the room bases, older, more rigid, motionless, and adorned with the fragile astonishment of being caught off guard. Their uneasiness was nothing new. The story had changed, so it was simply louder now. My dad got up. Layla. His voice was unreadable and rough. This place is yours, I responded, equally across 4 states. Adding that I own 17. He didn't respond. Not necessary. I said, I'm not here for applause. I came to give something back. I nodded slightly in Hannah's direction. 2 team members, each carrying svelte black folders, followed her forward. Inside were signed event contracts, 1 for each visitor. Layla Morgan is her name. They have a single note and itemized rates. Occasionally, the story you attempted to remove still ends up on the wall close to the rear. Janine laughed softly, knowingly. Why didn't you use your full name from the beginning? A gentle older man standing next to my father asked. I hesitated because I wanted to construct something before anyone made a decision about what it should be. As I moved away, he nodded quietly and with understanding in his eyes. It was the noise, not the light, that dimmed the ballroom. I didn't feel invisible for the first time in years. A diplomat was discreetly assigned to the VIP suite that Sophie had insisted on calling 4 times to secure. Arriving late, she was heavily pregnant. Naturally, Sophie's new room was still lovely, but it was the same kind of alley that I used to clean for $9.75 an hour. Aunt Janine came looking for me, but my father never did. After 11 p.m., she knocked on the door of my office. She wasn't invited in. She didn't inquire. All she did was give me an envelope. It contained a picture I hadn't seen in many years. I was on the back porch of the old Bristow house, maybe 8 years old. My father's hand rested lightly on my shoulder while he held a pitcher of lemonade in both hands. Not for anything noteworthy, but because I spilt the lemonade a few minutes later, I remembered that day, fearful of receiving a reprimand. Nobody spoke. They chuckled. I didn't feel like I belonged on the back again after that. You were woven into Janine's looping script. That was all. Before I could say anything, she was gone. I rode the elevator to the service floor the following morning. The housekeeping staff was getting started. Some gave a nod. A young woman grinned and then averted her gaze. I strolled over to the former supply room. Our break area is now. Near the rear wall was a coat rack. I took the framed name tag out of my bag. Lila, cleaning. Above the jackets, I hung it. No spotlight, no plaque, just a nail and some wood. Sophie left a note in her room later that day. We did something that you didn't deserve. Although I didn't respond, the return address appeared on the reunion invitations sent out the following spring. Caldwell Miracle at ellen.group. Please subscribe and stick around if my story speaks to you. I didn't construct Maple Harbor to make a statement. I constructed it to provide a home for people like us. Tell me what they attempted to remove from you in the comments section below. Even if the voice is only a whisper, it still matters. If you have ever been forgotten or forgotten, no, you are not by yourself. It matters how strong you are in silence. And your future is built with each little step you take. Together, we surpass everyone's expectations, so please subscribe and come along on this journey with me. Your assistance means the world to me.